It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael. I am your host here this morning. Appreciate you riding with us. We're in our third segment this morning. Sorry, I got cut off there by my show clock. I wasn't paying attention to it. I was kind of wrapped up in talking with you about our studio plans and how we need some assistance from you. I'm going to give that information again in case you missed it and your pen stopped writing when you needed it most, which is what happens with most pens, at least all of mine. It's America's Voice Now, and our address is P.O. Box 1195. City is West Plains. State is Missouri, and the zip code is 65775. My email is mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. Telephone number where you can call, and it's a hotline, but you can only leave messages, is 417-204-5130. It's 417-204-5130. You can call the show while we're live and on the air. You can do that if you'd like at 417-204-5141. And that's a different number, of course, altogether, and it's only for when the show is live. In this segment here, I wanted to talk a little bit about this issue of China's undue influence on us. The reason that I'm concerned about this is because we are seeing an increasing level of pressure that comes from China and is affecting both our domestic and our foreign policy. The reason that they have so much undue influence is because they hold an enormous amount of our debt. They are currently in the category of about $1.3 trillion. And while that, may seem small to you when we have $17 trillion, and by the way, that's dwarfed by the Fed, which now is in possession of over $4 trillion. $4 trillion, by the way, that they created out of nothing. But that's a whole different topic. But right now, what we're seeing is an enormous amount of pressure from China on the U.S. that is affecting every aspect of our domestic and foreign policies. We're seeing an administration that appears to be afraid of pushing back against China. One, because they don't want them to dump our debt and essentially drag the dollar to its knees. Two, they've become addicted, if you will, to cheap Chinese production and manufacturing. And we don't know what kind of agreements have been accomplished over the course of this administration and previous administrations that we're forced and obliged to live by, which Americans have no knowledge about. I mean, we've watched as over decades now, this massive spending that we've been accomplishing. We have outsourced the American labor force in a way that has never been accomplished before in the United States of America. It almost seems as if it's intended to drag this nation to its knees. The outsourcing of American labor has so damaged our entire fiscal situation domestically. It is what is the cause of our major unemployment. It is the cause of the low-paying jobs that we have. The manufacturing aspect of our nation, which is one of the things that made us great, has been literally given away in some kind of an altruistic, manner that to try to make the world love us or something. I mean, it's ridiculous. Well, and we're constantly told that this is for our own good, that we benefit from that. I don't see how we benefit from it. We may benefit from it from cheap products that come here, But the truth of the matter is that's not benefiting us in where it really matters, which is in the incomes and the pockets and the development of wealth and the retention of that which you have spent your time and your labor and your effort and your energy on. You're not able, as an American anymore, to go from rags to riches. You can't do that in the manufacturing arena. You might be able to do it in the high-tech world and, start a website, but it's all ephemeral. I mean, the money may be hard to the guy who starts, to Zuckerberg or whatever his name is from Facebook or Google, but the average American who started out with nothing and built a small manufacturing place in his garage and then moved it into a building because he needed a little bit more room and bought a few more machines, and the next thing you know, he was in a sizable warehouse and hiring 50, 70, 150, 500, 1,000 people. Those days are gone, folks. And they're gone because we can no longer produce here in the United States in a way that we can compete, one, against those countries that we've given our own manufacturing resources away to. And we've squandered our jobs to the point where everybody now doesn't do real work anymore. Everything is virtual. We're pushing paper. This guy's selling this guy's stuff, who's selling this guy's stuff, who's selling this guy's stuff. But there's no real labor, there's no real manufacturing, which is a physical hard core. It's a foundation like concrete that enabled the United States of America to grow to greatness. Now, everything that we do is related to selling, but never producing. We sell everybody else's stuff. I mean, the junk that comes over here from China, sure, you can run a retail store, but listen, America is at the point where we can no longer afford to be a nation and a society of consumers. When you see and realize that 70% of the United States economy is built on consumerism, that should be the alert. Only 30% of our country and our entire GDP is based on something other than shopping. Now, when we're talking about how do you run a country on shopping? I mean, at some point, the money runs out, folks. At some point, the debt level on a personal level is so high, there's just no more room for you to buy. And that's where we are. That's the level we've reached. We have seen that level of money that's inbound into the country by China corrupt our government. We've seen the wasteful spending that it's engendered. We now have a debt that is greater than our gross domestic product. And in any economist book, other than some Keynesian, fantasy writer, that's dangerous ground. You cannot buy your way out of debt. You cannot inflate your way out of debt. All you do is end up in greater debt until at some point in time, you must, the only way to get rid of it is to either abdicate and walk away from it or pay it off. Now, repudiation of our debt is really not realistically in the cards, at least that foreign debt. I'd be more than happy to repudiate the Federal Reserve. That's a cabal of private bankers that have literally bled the United States of America dry. Their current holdings of U.S. debt are in the $4 trillion range. So when you think about that level of debt holding out of $17.5 trillion in debt, that's a staggering sum. When Obama took office, they only held $500 billion. Now they hold $4 trillion. That's a $3.5 trillion increase in just his administration alone. And there's no signs of stopping because under QE infinity and the new reign of Janet Yellen, it's only going to get worse. And the truth is, they don't know how to unwind from it. When they even just talked about slowing down the buying of $85 billion a month in bonds, the market went boo. So immediately they said, okay, I guess we can't talk like that anymore. We're going to continue, folks. Don't worry. So when that does happen, see, their primary interest is keeping the markets propped up. But this is all a false, it's like a bubble of bubble gum. As long as you keep blowing air into it, it'll stay there. But, at some point in time, it's going to collapse. And since we no longer have manufacturing to pull us out of the hole, kind of pulling up by your own bootstraps, right? Which, everybody knows that's there's no, that's not a realistic, you can't do that. It doesn't follow the laws of physics. But neither does inflating your way out of debt. Neither does borrowing your way out of debt. At some point in time, the piper's going to have to be paid. And what we've seen and allowed China to do, and I specifically am referencing China here, what we have seen and allowed them to do, what this administration has done by fawning to them, has been harmful to us. There are other areas and other aspects of what China is doing, but they're more social, and they're separate from the financial aspects. But they wield this amount of debt that they have over our head like a baseball bat, threatening us with it. If you don't capitulate, we'll dump these bonds, and we'll dump them at a wholesale fire sale rate. And the United States dollar will collapse. And these people in government and the people in the Fed are like, we can't let that happen. So whatever China asks for, China gets. Whatever acquiescence they want, we give. Whatever kowtowing genuflection they want, we do. And it's harmful to America. They're also threatening us militarily. Lately, their rhetoric has been ratcheted up significantly. What they're doing off the coast of Japan and South Korea with that new zone is sheer aggression. They are flexing their muscle. They've been building a military that rivals ours, and they've been working at it very, very hard. They're spending our money to do that. We have a $300 billion a year deficit with China alone. And that's the money they're using to build their military. America is, in our trade with China, there's an imbalance of $300 billion every year. China gets $300 billion more than we get back. How much longer can we continue to allow the draining of American resources to the tune of $300 billion a year to one country? And on top of that, we give them economic aid. What? We give them economic aid. We borrow it from them and then give it right back to them as economic aid. Humanitarian aid. How insane is that? You see, the problem that we have at this stage in the game is that Americans, for all intents and purposes, have lost our compass. And I don't mean our moral compass, although that's a whole different aspect. But we should be looking at China as the dangerous nation they are. They are a communist dictatorship. They delight in infringing the rights of their own people. They have absolutely no problem doing that. They are slowly but surely dragging their entire society and their culture up out of the Stone Age, utilizing American dollars. And lest we forget, the regime that is currently in power in communist China came to power on the souls, the bones, and the skulls of 60 million of their own. They rule with an iron fist. Their censorship is widely known and rampant. And they're promoting that here. They are one of the major drivers in the United States of America being looked upon by the United Nations as not following human rights. Imagine that. That's a bit like the pot calling the kettle black. Both parties in the United States are guilty of this. Both parties have openly and willfully handed the candy store, the keys to the store, to China. They utilize the same divisive tactics in our society that worked in theirs. And they're teaching and encouraging our political class to do the same. The truth of the matter is, the Chinese government is demanding directly and through the UN with cooperation from the other nations on the Security Council that the United States eliminate the Second Amendment. Are you aware of that? They've actually taken steps to declare that the United States of America is outside of the boundaries of human rights because of our Second Amendment, which prohibits those in the country from being able to live safe. That's their claim. They claim that our Second Amendment violates the human rights of others in the country to live safe. Lately, there's actually been troops training here on U.S. soil. There was an article out in the New American about that, and I talked about it at that point in time. But it's disturbing when we're talking about the United States of America assisting a communist nation who is a declared enemy. Maybe not an economic enemy, but in the military perspective, ladies and gentlemen, they are. They are also the primary funder and the primary watchdog that protects North Korea. They use North Korea as a thermometer, as a test monkey, to gauge the United States' reaction to how things are being done. They use North Korea as a conduit to encourage terrorism around the world and encourage aggression. North Korea is a proliferator and a distributor of nuclear material and nuclear weapons and nuclear weapon technology. Where do you think they got that? From Big Brother China. They're starving their own people. China uses them as a taunting measure. You know, it reminds me a little bit of when you hear about, you know, a gang of kids or a gang of young men who are dealing drugs. And one of the ways that they escape the law is by having the kids who are under 18 carry the drugs for them. And this way, if they get busted, the kids they may go to reform school for 6 months or something like that, but the adults would go to jail with a felony for 20 years. So they let the kids carry it. And then they only take what they need to sell off. But they're using the kid. And in this case, China uses North Korea in much the same way. They allow them to be the aggressor. China can say, with plausible deniability, hey, we didn't have anything to do with that. They are working on building cities right here in the domestic United States called these economic safe zones, they're calling them. They're planning one up near Albany. They're planning one up in Detroit. They want to buy up huge chunks of land, hundreds and hundreds of acres, and take a Chinese city and build it right there in the middle of the domestic United States. One in upstate New York, in the Catskills, and one in Detroit that I know about. There may be others. They want to create a communist Chinese regime that will have free trade. They're promoting gun confiscation. You know, you got to wonder if one of the reasons they're not promoting gun confiscation is so that when the dollar collapses, and I think they have the ability to make that engineeringly happen, will the Americans be well enough armed to defend themselves against a military and political coup? They are working against us economically by trying to destroy the dollar as the reserve currency. They are one of the members of the BRICS nations. The BRICS nations are trying to displace the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And now Australia and Japan and a number of other countries are joining. If the United States as the world's reserve currency and the U.S. dollar are unseated, they want the Chinese yuan to be the replacement. That will cause an economic collapse in the United States. An economic collapse of that magnitude will lead to the complete and utter total collapse of the American political system. Anarchy will result, and I just wouldn't be surprised to see China offer to come in and save the day. The truth is, treaties and agreements like the TPP and the TTIP involve China and their satellite influential countries. Not good for America. And those treaties are negotiated in secret, so we really don't even have any say in what's in them. We don't even know what's in them. What I got to try and get across here is that we're not looking at China in their truest light. We're looking at them as some kind of a benefactor who has greater wisdom and insight, power and money and fame and influence than we have. And with all due respect, the United States is the one who dragged China out of the Stone Age in many respects. You're listening to America's Voice Now. Please communicate and contact me. If you like or dislike, I want your feedback on these episodes that we do. So if you like them or dislike them, communicate with me and tell me that. You can email me at mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. Let me know if these episodes are good or bad, if you agree or disagree. If you'd like to come on and rebut something I say, then by all means, let me know that. You can find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. You can find our Facebook page at facebook.com/americasvoicenow. Please hit the like button. And you can do the same on our YouTube channel and subscribe there at youtube.com/americasvoicenow. We'll be right back.